Okay, so in this case, we watched this video. We talked about object-oriented programming. We really don't go into too much detail about that. I think it's more important that you think about the load on that. There's a sample page here of this one. I found was probably the most simple and best tutorial to go through.
You need a website. Why not do it yourself? Go to Wix.com to create your stunning website.
Okay, yeah, his cat likes eating celery. But this tutorial I found, a half hour, is really easy and turn the very basics of JavaScript. If you want to handwrite your JavaScript, and so he has a little simple example.
Get started by taking a look at a demo of the finished product that we will be building together.
So he has his little demo. I gave you on Canvas. There's a basic this file. If you click with that file and download it, it's basically a starting point that he starts with, and then you can follow what he does. It's really very, very simple, but it teaches you all the concepts of some simple, basic, clicking things, adding things, making an array of data. Because you have to store, if you look here, each one of these items is stored in an array. What is an array? How do you make an array? How do you replace text on the screen? How do you change colors? He goes over how to do things like that. How to add things to an array. How to remove things from an array. What is an array? Is a list of items in an object. So basically, it's very easy. Let me show you some of the ones that I would use. I'm going to cheat a little bit and use Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver does some JavaScript for you. So let me start with a new file. I don't want Bootstrap. Just a plain HTML file. Okay, and if you write things inside of Dreamweaver, there's different file formats. Last class we talked a lot about PHP. You remember that? Okay, so you can save PHP files. You can start inside of Dreamweaver making a PHP file right there. Look. You can also start with a JavaScript file. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of other file formats. Just keep those in mind that you could use different formats inside of Dreamweaver. Now, I'm not going to write a JavaScript file. I'm going to write the JavaScript. I'm going to have it write the JavaScript right inside the page. Right inside the page. So, the tutorial that is on there goes over some very, very basic ways of doing things inside there. Depending upon how you set your file up inside of Dreamweaver will depend upon how you write JavaScript. And what I mean by that is the JavaScript in the head section? Is it in the body section? And so on. Some of the most, let me put some text on here so I have at least something on here. There we go. We got some text on there. How JavaScript is written inside of Dreamweaver is using the behaviors window. The behaviors window is probably the simplest way of writing JavaScript inside of Dreamweaver. The behaviors window, of course, is a pop-up window called behaviors right here. And in the behaviors, you have basically a basic window. Okay, so how this works is that there's a pull-down menu right here. Okay, in this pull-down menu, it'll ask you to do something. So it's going to write JavaScript for you depending upon what you want to do. Of course, there's JavaScript calls, change property, check for plugins, drag AP element, effects. These are things that you can apply. You apply those to a div tag, an object. You can think of the div tag as being something that you can do something to. One that I've used in the past was GoURL. That is one where you can redirect, but of course you can redirect using the meta tag, which is faster than using JavaScript to redirect. You can open a browser window. Pop-up message, preload images is where you can use JavaScript to preload the graphics before the entire page loads. So let's say you have a bunch of photos, right, a bunch of images, and you want those images to be loaded before the screen displays. You can use preload images, and it'll load the images into memory before the page is displayed. Also, the preload images is good if you're doing one where you're making a scrollable window and you want to load things as the person is scrolling. So they don't load everything at the same time. You just load what is visible at the same time. You can do that with JavaScript. Swapping images, hide image elements, swapping image restore, validate forms. That's if you build a form. We could actually build a simple form today and talk about the different form elements. And using JavaScript, we could validate the form element to make sure the person puts the proper format in there. So these are common JavaScript functions and so on. A lot of these you don't really need anymore. Like in the early days, we used to check to make sure that they had the Flash plugin. I would use the check plugin there to make sure that they had the Flash player before they tried to display a Flash site. And if they didn't have that, because back in the days, you know, we used to check when we would make websites out of Flash. We would make sure that they checked for the Flash player before it tried to load the Flash player, so they didn't get an error message. And so we would do check plugin, check for the Flash player. If they didn't have the Flash player, we would make a screen that says, you know, go to Adobe website and download the Flash player, and so on. So, you know, these are common elements that you would do. To do some of these, let's just say we want this page to redirect somewhere. I could say go to URL. If you click on that, it's going to ask where do you want to go. It's asking first option, saying where in the main window. Well, I want to refresh the screen to a new site. Where do you want to go? Let's say we want to go to Google. I would put my Google in here, and then hit OK and say what did it do? Well, you'll notice the first thing it did was it put an onload of there. What is that doing? That's onload means when the screen loads. I think I wrote that on the board. So onload. So here, it doesn't write the best JavaScript. It's a little bit sloppy. And so the first thing you'll see is it writes an argument here at the top that says, you know, put some variable in there, an argument, and it says this is go to URL. This is made up. As you can tell, this is a made up word. The document is referring to the specific window. So whenever you're working inside of JavaScript, the word document is referring to the screen that you're looking at. Okay, what window am I right now? I'm looking at something, a blank screen that says some text on it, right? This is the window right here. Okay, so and if you watch the video, the guy talks about document and you know what is the document in the window and so on. So there's a document, and then he goes into a for loop. Basically, this is a loop. I don't know why they're doing a loop for a simple redirect. They probably don't even need to do that. So all this stuff in here seems to be a little bit more than what is needed to do a simple redirect. I don't know, but other than that, if we test it, you'll see it automatically goes to Google right here because it's in some live mode here. You don't even have to go to the internet. If I preview, see it automatically goes to Google. Now, of course, I think I showed you how to do that using the meta tag, right? Instead of JavaScript, but we can move on. So that was one example. Let's try another one. Let's try a more famous one. Let's try the more famous one. So the more famous one, I would say, would be the swap image. Swap image is a very common way, and of course you could do this through CSS as well, which is probably better to do it through CSS, but I don't know. I'm just trying to show you some things that JavaScript can do. So let's say I put a picture on the screen. I'm going to put a picture on the screen. Some images. No, there's no images. Where do I have images? I need images. I need an image. Jazz? Bell? What that is. Oh, I guess this is the whoosh. It's too big. Make it smaller. No. There we go. Now where's my code? Shit. Let me save my file. Oh, great. Okay, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to move some images around. Hold on. Where's that image at? Really?
It's Bell.
Yeah, I see it here. Put them here for just now. Where the hell is the folder I'm working in? No. Where does it want to go? Whatever, I'm just going to save this on the desktop. It is on the desktop. There we go. No, I didn't. I thought it was on the desktop. Is it not on the desktop? Why is it looking in there? Okay, whatever. I have an image. It's on the screen. You see it's a simple image source. You have an image there. So another very common JavaScript, again, is when you're waiting for something to happen on the screen. What could happen on the screen, of course, is one would be I move my mouse over top of this image. Right? Move it over here. Okay? On mouse over. Okay, is the term. On mouse over. So in this case, when I select my image, I can go over to my behaviors right here. I can go to where it says, where is it? Swap image. Swap image. In the swap image, it's going to go and it's asking me what image. Now, I haven't named this image, so that's why it's just calling it image unnamed. I probably should have named this ahead of time. Given it an ID. That's okay. So, set the source to, and so when the person rolls the mouse over this, where do we want to change to? Well, we're going to go to where it says browse, and I'm going to choose my second image, whatever this image is. Notice it says preload image, so it's going to use some JavaScript to preload them, and then on here it says on mouse out, which means as I move the mouse outside, it'll go back to the normal one. Okay, so very simple JavaScript here. If I hit OK here, again, it puts some crazy arrays at the top here, probably a lot more than it really is needed here. So, you know, writing something like this, you don't need all this functions, find objects, swap image, return. We could do this pretty simply with CSS, of course, and you know, your overstate or whatever. But this is a JavaScript. As you can see, it writes a bunch of JavaScript at the top up here. Down here it has an onload. It preloads the image, so again there's an onload function. Then the second one is when I roll the mouse over, it's going to switch. So there's one called on mouse over right here is JavaScript, and then it's going to swap the image to the second image right here, and then on mouse out it's going to swap the image back to normal. So if we preview this one, you'll notice when I roll the mouse over, it switches to the new image. Very simple, basic, but again, Dreamweaver's probably writing a bunch of stuff it probably doesn't even need. I'm sure you could really write that very simply with, you know, one object instead of all the arrays and things that it does. But I'm just pointing it out to you, trying to give you a concept today of what JavaScript can do. Again, you're looking for certain events. Right now we're waiting for an event. That event would be what? Roll my mouse over, roll my mouse out, roll my mouse over, roll my mouse out. Very simple ways of doing that. Some other ones that I've used before. at least in Dreamweaver. Let me save this one. Drag element is an awful fun one. If you ever wanted to drag something on your screen, the drag element is and then there's also detection, where if you drag something and it hits something else, you can have it do something else. So you'll notice there's one called drag AP element. Okay, an AP element is basically a div tag. Okay, that's absolute place. AP stands for absolute placement. So if I put a div element on here, and we give it an ID, or I think you can use a class too, I'm not sure. And we put some stuff in there. We close our div. Then we make our ID. Am I trying to write here? JavaScript. Not JavaScript. I'm trying to write. I want some. What am I trying to write? Totally confused today. Oh, here. I'll cheat and use my CSS designer. What am I writing? No, I want an ID. How do I make an ID? Pound sign? No. How do I make an ID? No, but how do I write it in a script?
Can you type it manually?
Yeah, I can type it manually. What do I start with?
Pound sign.
Pound sign. That's what I said. Pound sign. Drag. No. Ugh. Whatever. I just want to give it some width and some height. Let's just put it in there. Give it color maybe. Okay. So we have a ID with basically some color in it. If we look at the screen, you'll see I got a box here. Okay, so it's basically a box. So in that box, I want the user to be able to put their mouse over it and drag it around the screen. I could do that using some JavaScript. The JavaScript that we have here is, and I think I need to make it a certain AP element. I think to make it an AP element, I need to give it a fixed space. Yeah, I think I have to get a fixed space. Yeah, I can't remember how to do it. Yeah. But there's a way to drag your object around. There was a way, there was a way to give it a fixed space. And I don't remember how to do that. Can I say the same for all of them? This is not what I want. No. Okay, let's not worry about dragging. I've done it before, I just don't remember how to make the AP div. It's been a while. Okay, let's try, let's make a form that you can actually make in using JavaScript. You can make the form required, or what we call validate. So, you know, a typical form has typical elements like a text box, text area. Of course, we have things like check boxes, radio buttons, and things like that. So in order to make a form, of course, the first thing you want to do is put a form tag in there. So I'm going to just put the form tag in there. You'll notice these are all the forms that you could do inside of Dreamweaver. They have most of the form elements already built right into the application. In order to do anything in the form element, you got to kind of put in the form tag first. So inside here you go under form. Once you put the form element in, you should give your form an ID. We could call it people. And then you can give the form name employees.
Which form anyway?
Insert form. It's just basically a form tag with an ID and a name and a method. So the method is how it will go to the server. There's two types of method, post and get. In this case, we pretty much don't use get as much as we used to. In the old days, we used to use get to go and get an application to work on the form elements. But in this case, post is primarily used. If you select a form element inside here and you go to the properties window inside of Dreamweaver, you'll see there's some options in there for not validating. You can apply a class to your form if you make a class. So I know I gave it an ID here, but you could put a class in there, and so that you can color your form, right? So that you're
Properties in Windows.
just for at least in this program, to give it some way of doing the data. The ENC type is how the data is encoded, and so on. So there's some options in here that you may need to adjust. Let's put in some form elements and we can come back to that. So in order to put a form elements on, the most common ones that you would put on, of course, would be name, phone number, email, things like that, right? Most of those are done using a text box. So to put a text box in there, we can use the form element. You got text, email, password, URL, tel for telephone, search, number, range, color, month, week, date, time, date, time, local, text area. You got button, submit button, reset button, file, image, hidden, select button, radio group, checkbox group, field set, and label. These all do different things according to which one you put in. These are all pretty much the same form elements that you would put in anything. The most common, of course, is text. If you click on text, it's going to put an input field. You'll know down here in the code view, you'll say input type text. The name of the field, you can put any name you want. So if it's name, if you're asking for somebody's name, you're going to put in name, right? And then the ID would be as well, name. And if you do that, you'll notice, what's that? How do I put the input thing in? Again, it's under insert, form, text, makes a text box.
So your cursor should be below that form, or
What's that?
your cursor should be below that form, or it could be anywhere when you insert.
Oh, when I inserted it in the form tag, or let's just look at the tag, don't look at this stuff up here. So when you're putting your stuff in here, of course you start with a form, then I have a label, which is the actual text that's next to it, and you can put that label anything you want. So in this is going to be, I'm asking for their name, so I put name next to it, yeah?
No, you have to change text field to name because you changed it on the
Name here. There. So the label, this all should match. Since I'm asking for the name, this should be name, this should be name, the ID.
Label.
The ID can be, I'm not sure why there's a name, why there's two names here.
When I did that, it didn't give me a label. It just directly gave me input text, type text.
I'm not sure what you're saying. You want me to do it again? Here, let me delete.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, I have put in a
Yeah, that
form
I have.
field. Okay, so inside there, I can go under Insert, Form, Text. We'll put a text field in there. Okay, and
That's what I got.
that's all you got there.
What did you get labeled?
I don't know how I got labeled first. And maybe if I select the whole thing first, I don't know. Form, text. No, you removed it. I don't know how I got that in there. To tell you the truth, I don't know how. I guess I could type it by hand. I was trying to avoid having to type all these carets.
So you need to have a label first.
Well, label makes it easier and makes it accessible as well. Putting the text properly next to the box is good for programming as well as good for that thing. So using a label on your boxes instead of using fake text is better. I don't know how I got the label in there last time. I went under form, text, and it automatically gave me a label. Now it's not giving me anything. So I don't know. I guess I could type it all in by hand. I'll never remember how to do all that though. So I don't know. I'm stuck now. I don't know. Here's a title. I think I was going to call it name, right? Name is name. Value is where you can actually put inside the box ahead of time. So you can type in put your name here. The size is how big is the box that the person is using. So in box size is measured in characters. So I don't know, maybe some people's names are pretty long, maybe 30 characters. There's also a maximum length for how many characters can be put into a box or a form box. And it's usually good to put in at least a maximum character, so a bot can't keep submitting things to the label. Here in Dreamweaver, you can tell it if it needs to be required, so it has to be there. Autocomplete means it starts giving the user information. But that's kind of difficult. I have a better way of doing that. I don't know what this form tag is. I don't know, people. I guess I'm people. And then, I don't know, these are some of the properties that you can give. I don't know how I used to have a label here. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know where the label tag went. I guess I could put it in. Was it label? I don't remember.
You can insert a label. Under form, it's the last one.
Yeah, but it just puts in that. Okay, I don't know why.
Yeah, you can insert label.
We'll put the word name in there. I don't know. The first time it actually gave me a label automatically. I don't know why it's not doing it here. Again, the things that you should do is, of course, like I said, you can put in a max. Shit. You can put in a, it's a type text. It's a name. It's required. It goes to the form people. It has a title. I don't know why the title is different. And then you can put a value in there. It says put your name here first, and then give it a size and then a max length. And remember, the size is measured in characters, so that's how many characters are in there. So if we save this, and we preview it, you see you get a box. The problem is you have to delete this. It would be nice if it went away first. How about that? We put Bill Gates' name in there. So you can use CSS to color it and do all that stuff as well. Another text box you can put in is email. And you can put a P tag between there so it goes on to a second line. I don't know why it's not giving me a box now. I don't know why it's not working like it was. But I guess I have to put a label in next to that. And we can call that email. Let's put that in front. And then the email, again, we could give it a name. You could give it a size. You can give it a max size. Tell which form to go into. Making sure it's required. And so on. So that's a simple one there. And another one you can put in as well is you could put in a password one. The password one will just give you a bunch of dots. I guess we could input a label for that. And you could give yourself a P tag to put it on a second line. And so you can quickly build a form inside of something like Dreamweaver very quickly. Again, you could use CSS to line them up. If you put the password in there, you'll notice it puts dots in there. With the email, you can put an email address. If you're going to validate it using JavaScript for the email address, you can validate that they have to put the @sign in. That's like the cheapest way of doing it. So you can put the @sign in. Is the door locked? Is that kid in this class? So again,
To make it next line, did you put email in the
what's that?
email
I put a
in the next line?
P tag. I put a
Or
P
tag
tag in it.
would be
Why the P tag and not the break?
break
I don't
in
know.
the
I guess I could put a
break.
BR break so it's closer. Just put a P tag in. It could be a BR break. So if you wanted to validate the email address, because we were talking about JavaScript earlier about that, you can actually go into the JavaScript, and if you select the form tag here, you can actually go into validate form option here. So in the validate form option here, you'll see that it'll give you, and I don't know why it's saying unidentified. I don't want that one. Why is it saying unidentified? Oh, we didn't give this a name. We have to give this one a name down here. So you need to tell it what kind of data this is down here for your password. Or no, we were going to do email, right? Oh, we got email name, right? People, form. Give it, required type, name, email. What label? Let me try that again. Why is this one unidentified? No, that's not working. Okay, let's not worry about that then. I don't know. There used to be a way that you could validate the form to make sure that they put the @ sign in there.
And where does it store? When somebody enters the names and email addresses, it's stored in there?
It's stored?
That is saved, that saves in there?
Yeah, you'd have to connect it to some kind of database. I don't know where the validation is. Okay, some of the other most common element ones are the ones you've already probably seen before. Of course, if you want, you can have telephone. I think we've already looked at that, where you put the telephone when a person touches the button, it goes to a telephone. A search box, basic search box. It's just an input box. That's all the search box is. It's just search, but it's not really giving you anything else. So another box that you might want to do in a form, of course, would be number. I'm not sure. Range, color, month, week, date, time,
Submit button.
date, time, local. I don't know if I've ever used a date time. I don't know. Let me see what that does. It doesn't do anything. Yeah. I'm not sure what that one does. But of course, the most common ones would be a button is the submit button. Reset button, file, image button, hidden. Select menu is a pull-down menu. So if you use select, you can actually have a pull-down menu. So if I select my select menu, I could give it a name. This is income. So I could put a label next to it. Let me put a label next to it. And we could put the word income in there. So we can have a label next to my pull-down menu. So a select menu is kind of a pull-down menu that you could use, and then you can add a size, how big you want it to be. You can tell it which form, if it's required, and then you can add values to that. So if we're going from 10,000, we can have 10,000 to 10,000 to 30,000, and then the value is what's sent to the server. So one of the things when you're building a form like this is if you have something, the value is what's being sent to the server. So even though the person sees 10,000 to 30,000 in the pull-down menu, what is being sent to the server could be in the value. What's that? I'm making a select menu. It's called select. So we can say person 1. We can add a new one. And so you could say 30,000 to person 2. Could add another one. Yeah, I guess we could do that. That's okay. And so if we hit OK, you'll notice here's the options. Okay, so if you're going to hand code that, again, it's called select menu, and it is used to give you a pull down menu. It's called select, and I have a label next to it. And so if I save it and I preview it, It's uh-oh. It's not pulled on. I must have programmed it wrong. Let me close. First, let's put a P tag in there. Or you can put a BR. I know you can put a BR. There's a way to make it a pull-down menu.
Properties of select.
Where do you see that?
Beginning, the left hand corner.
Yeah, there used to be a way that you could have it as a pull-down menu. I don't know. I guess I made the mistake there. I don't know. Let me try another one. Where was I at? Select? I don't know why it's not giving me the option. I'd have to go into the code here and try and figure out how to do it with one option. I've done it before with a pull-down menu, but it looks like it's giving me a list here where it only shows one. It doesn't show this giant list. And you can click on it and it'll give you a list of menus that pop up. I don't know why it's not doing that. Another very useful one is to use a group, and that would be under radio group, and inside the radio group you could have several. So, of course, the radio button is where you give the user kind of one choice, right? Where if you're going to give them a multiple choice, you would use a checkbox, right? So radio group is good for if, like, are you coming to party? And of course, we could say yes, yes, no, no, and then of course we might even add one more and say maybe. Oops. Maybe. Maybe. And so you could give yourself a nice radial group like this, and if you hit OK, it'll give you a group like you see right here, and it works great for things that are only one choice, because when you click on one, it deselects the other one. So if I preview this now, you have my yes, no, and maybe, right? And so if I click on yes, it selects it, but if I click on no, it'll deselect it. Okay, so the radio button is good for giving them one choice, right? One choice only. Okay, so that's one choice, and then of course the other one that you see inside there, of course, is the is a checkbox. So in the checkbox group, if you use a checkbox, it's kind of similar, and so you might say favorite food, and we could say fish. Is that your favorite food? Who likes fish? No, I don't like fish. Fish. We could say pizza. And then as we add more, we could add more bread. All things that make us fat.
I forgot the orange bread. You wrote bead.
Oh, that's okay.
Chicken.
In the select, you have to
Chicken. Okay, chicken. Okay, so
in the select, if you click on the table index and you put the number in the table index, then it gives it down.
yeah, how do I fix that?
Go to select,
Uh huh.
and there's a table index.
I don't know where my select is. Oh, here it is. Yes. Select.
go to the properties,
Uh-huh.
and there's a table index next to list values.
Yeah, put one.
I think 3. How many? Yeah, right.
Okay, so again, let's look at that one.
No.
No. There's a way to get this to pull down. Yeah, I just don't know.
I got it. So that's what I did. I added 2 values and then put table index 2, and then it shows a drop down.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's a way to get a drop down. I don't know why it's not working for me. But again, the difference between the radio button, of course, is when you want the user to use one choice, right? But with the checkbox, they can choose more than one, right?
But is it showing the label or the value?
The value is what's sent to the server. The label is what is being displayed.
For me, it's showing the drop down.
I don't know why it's not giving me it.
Beans are the most nutritious food.
So,
You see, the
Is it
table
because of
index
the
didn't put it
selected thing in the first option?
what's that?
Is it because of the selected thing in the first option? Word selected. Option value person one.
I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry.
Option value person one, and then after it says selected. No. You
No.
don't need that, I don't think.
That just means that this is the first one that's highlighted, maybe. I think selected means it's highlighted.
Yeah, you don't need that. I don't know why it's not working. It should.
Yeah, I don't know why my pull-down menu is not working. I don't know. Usually, it shows you a list and then...
Because of the capital letter and income?
No, the table index is not showing there. You select it, but it's not showing.
So what? What am I supposed to put in there?
Just put 3.
3? No. Still doesn't like me. I don't know. But those are the most common ones that you can put in. So, what you should do between now and in next class, I think you should watch this JavaScript